Since the war between Israel and Iran began, Iran has suffered heavy losses, with many senior officers and nuclear scientists targeted and eliminated. Israel even claimed it could eliminate Khamenei, but this was vetoed by Trump. Iran, of course, launched multiple missile counterattacks on Israel, causing some damage to Israeli cities. However, from a military perspective, Iran has undoubtedly suffered significant setbacks. Iran's air defense system was ineffective against the Israeli Air Force's F-15, F-16, and F-35 aircraft, and Iran quickly lost air superiority after the war started. Israel struck Iran across several countries without facing any resistance. In contrast, Iran's retaliatory missiles were intercepted by countries like Jordan, highlighting Iran's diplomatic isolation, as even Islamic nations were unwilling to genuinely support it. Surprisingly, Pakistan took a strong stance, supporting Iran without dwelling on Iran's minor actions during the India-Pakistan air conflict. Many people do not understand why Iran is so vulnerable and no match for Israel. In fact, Iran's ruling class only realized how outdated their military equipment was after the war began. China had long offered to sell its weapon systems to Iran, bluntly pointing out that Iran's equipment was obsolete and that its so-called indigenous weapons were second- or third-rate imitations of Western products, sufficient for dealing with Iraq or Syria, but entirely inadequate against a military power like Israel. You may not believe it, but Iranians are extremely confident in their weapon systems and industrial capabilities, completely dismissing Chinese weapons. Moreover, Iran's elite class widely admires Western products, believing even Russian equipment surpasses China's. Iran has also developed drones and missiles, achieving minor successes, but in the eyes of Chinese military industries, these are industrial junk. It is unclear what Iran was thinking, as its ruling class has long fantasized about reconciling with the West to lift sanctions entirely, maintaining a lukewarm relationship with China. Iran even pursued a strategic partnership with India, handing over port management to them. Some ask whether China refuses to help Iran because of these issues. Not entirely. While China resents Iran's incompetence and betrayal, it is more unwilling to see Iran defeated by Israel and the US, or even occupied like Syria, with large swaths of territory and oil fields controlled by the US military, as this would severely threaten China's strategic interests and energy security. Let me share a lesser-known story. When Iran reached the nuclear deal with the West, it did many things that wronged China. For example, Iran leaked information about Chinese companies doing business with it, leading to those companies being targeted and heavily sanctioned by the US. Of course, Iran would not admit this, but China is not naive. It is impossible for the US government to obtain evidence of Chinese companies' dealings with Iran through banks like HSBC or Citibank without someone in the Iranian government leaking the information. In fact, there has long been significant resentment toward Iran on Chinese social media for betraying allies to secure its own survival, colluding with India to undermine China and Pakistan, leading most Chinese to oppose government support for Iran. However, emotions aside, Pakistan's immediate strong stance against Israel, along with severe condemnation from China, Russia, and other SCO members, shows that the Chinese government cannot sit idly by while Iran is overthrown. Beyond Iran's oil, China is more concerned that Israel has entered a reckless mode and may soon become completely uncontrollable. If China allows Israel to invade Islamic countries and trample international law, the entire Middle East may fear Israel and fully align with the US. For Arab countries, the Iran issue requires careful consideration. Each successful Israeli expansion in the Middle East raises the stakes, regardless of religious affiliations or feelings toward Iranians. They should stand up to condemn and warn Israel. Israel annexed the Golan Heights, forcing the Syrian government to acquiesce, and it could similarly reoccupy the Sinai Peninsula and control the Suez Canal. Iran's lesson shows that abandoning allies and making concessions will never satisfy Israel. Arab countries, Turkey, Iran, and the broader Islamic world should unite to curb Israel's expansionist ambitions. Personally, I have historically been very pro-Israel, as I mentioned in previous videos, and I do not shy away from this. However, Israel has truly lost control, and with Trump's acquiescence, Netanyahu will continue creating new crises. Iran must also reflect on its own issues. How has Mossad managed to infiltrate Iranian society so extensively? And is there a problem with the cohesion of its own people? Khamenei is 86 years old. Why is a cleric so obsessed with power? I believe 99% of Iranians are willing to fight for their homeland. But how many are willing to fight for him?